She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Welcome. Welcome to 5 Lemons Laughing. We are episode 71.
Woo,
Yeah.
woo.
Woo. And we are 4 lemons today. Amanda is not with us, and we are wishing her the best on her trip today. Can't wait till you get back, Amanda. Hope you're having tons of fun. Our topic today, and I think this is a very good timing since we are approaching Mother's Day, and our topic being self-care, which we know that a lot of mothers tend to not do so well at self-care. So today we want to talk a little bit about what self-care is, how it can impact you, your health, how to incorporate it into your spiritual practices, also how to integrate it into maybe your professional, your work life. So balancing yourself, your being, your household, all the things that we have to do every day and all the things we have to manage, it becomes a bit of a challenge sometimes to understand how to incorporate self-care, how to notice when you are lacking in self-care. So I would like to start out with maybe Morgan, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your practices, or how do you go about understanding when you are in need of self-care?
Well, how do I go about understanding when I am in need of self-care? I think this week has actually been a really good example of that for me, because we just moved into a new house. We spent 2 nights here, and we downsized from a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house into a little, we call it a cabina. It's just a lofted bedroom and a little kind of like an efficiency apartment almost. So yeah, no matter how much you prepare for a move, there's so much that can only be done the last day. And then there's all the unpacking and organizing and sorting with 2 dogs and 2 cats underfoot, and torrential rain outside and mud, and trying to organize and find homes for things when there's less space. So it's been quite a process, and it's all gone pretty smoothly, but I definitely can get very carried away with I got to get it done. I got to get it done. I got to get it done. As long as there are projects remaining, bags unpacked, things not yet put away, like I could keep working until 10 o'clock at night if I let myself. And I think formerly I probably would have done that. And so I'm really grateful that this whole self-care topic has become pretty popularized and brought into the mainstream in the past decade or so. Like, people can make fun of it all you want, but I'm so grateful for it, because I had the awareness that, whoa, sis, it's time to slow down and relax. Like, yeah. So I guess just checking in with myself and being mindful, like, am I just going through the motions? Is it time for me to take a break here? Is it time for me to be done? For like just having that self-awareness to know when I'm pushing myself a little bit too much has been really helpful this week. And, I've still been pausing to prepare like a mindful breakfast or lunch or whatever. And not just working my way through that and skipping meals. So I think I've been practicing self-care pretty well over these past few transitional days.
That sounds fabulous,
Something
Morgan.
just, your mentioning of it just prompted something that we had a discussion about in my family over the Easter holiday, which was that they're considering making it a law to have a 4-day work week instead of, a federal mandate. And I didn't know that. Someone mentioned it. And I thought, well, I've always thought it was crazy for the person whoever came up with working 5 days and being off for 2. Like, right? So I hear that the law would mandate 4-day work weeks and maintaining the same salary and not working 4 tens, actually working 4 8-hour days.
Yeah. Well, evidence supports that people who have a better work-life balance are much more productive in the time that they are working, so they can get the same amount of work done in that with no loss of productivity, even though there's less hours being clocked. Don't quote me on that, but I did read that research somewhere at some point in time along the way.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw a wrench in here. So we're a manufacturing facility. How do we get the same amount of product out with the same amount of space, the same amount of equipment in those 8-hour days?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say, yeah. We don't.
I'm sure that's a part of the. I'm sure that's a part of the debate of it. Yeah.
I mean, I can see if you're
shift to fill the gap or whatever.
What did you say, Morgan?
It would, in that situation, it seems like it would require an extra shift to cover the gap if the manufacturing process is working like clockwork, I don't know.
Well, we already have people start at 4:30 in the morning and go till 5, but we're barely able to keep up with our demand working 5 days a week from 4:30 in the morning till 5 p.m. at night. And so we used to work 24 hours a day, but I don't think that's healthy for people to be up all night. And so I really don't want to have to go back to that. So, because we've considered, we were thinking 4 tens, but a 4-day work week. And we really wanted it because all of our employees want it. But it comes with we could do it if we were mandated, I guess. But it comes with so much that we have to consider so much coverage for a manufacturing floor. And when we're actually manufacturing a tangible product. So I'm not trying to put a wrench into your idea, but I would probably argue against it. Federal law.
I didn't even think about this, but I used to be a work-life balance coach for corporate.
Oh, wow. I'm still learning so many new things about each of you every week. I love it. Okay, tell us more.
So I would consult with corporations on how to incorporate work-life balance. And when, I never thought about condensing a work week from the way it is now, where you're working 5 8s to, 4 8s. But of course, the question of down to 4 10s back then, when there wasn't even telecommuting or working from home or any of that, was a big deal to have people work from home 1 day a week at least. And or incorporate the 4 10s. That was a really big shift. Also back then was incorporating childcare, family medical leave was just becoming a big thing. So a lot of the things that are actually happening now, they were pretty unheard of back then. So I would say to you, Penny, get ready to figure it out.
Uh,
Penny, at what point does your so if you hired like a whole second group of laborers to operate on a different, let's say 3.5 and 3.5, right? So, or 3 and 4 days, right?
okay.
So you wouldn't do 24, but you do it like 7 days a week. At what point does having to pay insurance on every employee and 401k and that kind of thing, does it ever, with a certain amount of employees, just cap off, like let's say you pay $1 million a year for 40 employees, and then does it incrementally go up from there, or do you like
we don't even look at that. We just are looking at coverage, because if we had 7 days a week workers working 4 days a week, we'd have to have engineers on staff, production maintenance technicians on staff, managers on staff. So we'd have to have all those higher level employees there. So we don't even look at that granular. We're just looking at coverage.
Yeah.
Do we have enough of the leadership team, the leadership team that can be there to make sure the machines are running, and that's where we get more wonked out, is the coverage. Because we could work 7 days a week, sure, and people could work 4 days, overlapping, so 1 day a week, all the team is there. I don't know. It seems really complicated to me. It doesn't sound like it would be very much work-life balance for me. As the owner of the company, we'd be on 7 days a week, and that wouldn't be any fun.
Do you think it's the government's thinking about this so that people spend more on their days off?
Oh,
like it would really drive the economy.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. But I think after COVID, people just realized that they're working their lives away, and and it's not worth it. A lot of people just totally exited, the corporate environment or those standard 9 to 5 jobs, period. And they're never going back. So I think it really has to do with the mental health of the country.
Right. And I was going to say, when Morgan was talking, I was going to say she made a big self-care leap just by moving to Costa Rica, having a different lifestyle.
Yes, that's true. I didn't even think of that from a self-care angle, but you're so right.
How is it different for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm no longer working a full-time job, so that's the major difference. And it's interesting because now I'm just like, and my mom said this not long ago, who is retired. She was like, I don't know how I did it before. Like my days are so busy. I don't know how I had time to do everything when I was working a full-time job. And that's how I feel. It's like the days just like, and I know part of it is I'm cooking more meals throughout the day, which requires more prep and more cleanup. And so there goes a chunk of the time. I'm doing laundry as needed throughout the day. So there goes a chunk of the time. And I'm, taking the dogs for a walk. And so anyway, but like my days are not just, it's not like I'm just sitting here being lazy. Like I did have judgments about myself for a period there where like, I've become a lazy person, and I'm, not worthy of abundance, not worthy of this life that I've manifested. I'm so lazy. That whole culture of needing to have a hard work ethic is so deeply ingrained in me that I had a lot of judgments about myself. And I vocalized that recently for the very first time. I don't remember in which setting it was. And it almost let the steam out. It let the air out of the balloon. And because I've just had this recognition over the past week that I'm not effing lazy at all. Like I am doing so many things, and they're all things that I enjoy. I enjoy my time, but like, and some of it is, working on creative endeavors. Some of it's working on developing a business. Some of it's working part-time. Some of it's working around the house. Household work is not to be underestimated.
Right.
So anyway, all of that is to say, yeah, the biggest difference is just, I guess I am the captain of my own ship, and I determine how my day looks and unfolds and how my week is scheduled out. So,
are you happier?
Yes, but of course, like, Abraham Hicks talks about like every new situation that may be your answered prayer or your called forth manifestation. It still begets new contrasting experiences that make you decide like what is the next thing that you'd like to have or not experience, to experience or not experience. So it's just brought forth new contrasts, new preferences that I wasn't aware of. Like, I don't know if I articulated that very well, but
perfectly.
Yes, I am happier, and I'm aware of like some things that I would like to be different.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I think we kind of skipped over a little bit of actually discussing what self-care is. So I kind of just dived in.
Yeah, I think we did.
You, Melissa, had a good definition, kind of describing what self-care actually really is.
Okay, well, off the internet, it's self-care refers to taking care of yourself by doing anything that contributes to overall wellness, including physical, mental, spiritual, intellectual, etc. More specifically, self-care means identifying and meeting your needs, which is something that most women struggle with. And in particular, physical self-care would include like fueling your body, getting enough sleep, doing physical exercise, and caring for your physical needs. That's what I got.
That's a pretty all-encompassing definition. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that I have been learning that part of my self-care is to pay attention to my central nervous system and to really calm myself down. Because I would just be doing things like going for a walk or eating or doing something with a little mindlessness. So I'm more mindful, and that's part of my self-care. And also just paying attention to where my attention is. If I'm paying attention to my feelings, if my feelings are heightened, if I'm anxious or nervous, I practice, of course, meditation and some other practices to calm my nervous system. There's tapping. I just recently learned if you like just sit, kind of hold your ear like this, it calms you down. So those kind of little practices I like to know, and they're important to me because I lived a lot of years with anxiety. So that's kind of the top of my list.
Let's go back to that version of Melissa. And like for each of us, Drusilla, Penny, and myself, like, yes.
Okay.
Like before we had this, spiritual practice, spiritual path that we're on now, like what were the ways that we did not practice self-care, or that we could have, like looking back, like if we had it to do over, we could have been we could have used a little bit greater self-care practices. We have more awareness now.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
So 25 years ago, when I was working in outside sales, and I worked for AT&T, and it was just so much fun because everybody wanted my services. It was so fun because they were the best. They were the best game on the block, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would go to work. Well, okay, I should probably back. Let's see. Okay, I would go to my daughter. My daughters were little, and I would go to it was a co-op preschool. So the parents were required to work at it, but it was awesomely fun. So I didn't see it as a requirement. I just saw it as a gift. And so I would go, they went to school from like 9 to 12. So I would go to their school from 9 to 12 on the days that I needed to participate, or my husband would go, but I loved going. So I usually went. And then I would take them home and they would go to we either had, somebody to take care of them. And then I would go to work. And then I would come home at probably 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and I would eat dinner, and then I'd get them to bed. And then I would go back to work in my home office. And I would work sometimes till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I would go to bed, and then I would get up, get the kids up, get them to school. If I was a go to school day, then I would go. Or if not, I would just go to the office, work, come home, eat dinner, work, go to bed. It was partially, I don't know what it was actually. I was trying to prove myself, or I just saw the bucks that could be rolling in because my customers wanted our services, and it took work to, get the sale completed. But it was, I got tons of awards. I did amazingly well and earned a lot of money. And I did it all at the expense of myself. I'm so lucky. I have a very resilient body. I am so lucky that it could take these hits for all those years. And I'm still in really good, I'm 63, don't take any medicine. And so I'm just like so grateful and thankful for that. I was at the doctor's office the urgent care one day, and the lady said, "Okay, what meds do you take?" And I go, "None." And she goes, "How old are you?" And I go, whatever that age was. She goes, "Really? None?" And I went, "None." But that's my goal too. But anyway, so I'm just really lucky that I have the body that was able to withstand that abuse, because that was really a lot of abuse. I didn't sleep very much. Yeah. So that's self-care. That's what I did. What's so interesting too, when I began doing my coaching stuff, the very first thing that I always had in my mind was like self-care is what all moms with kids are missing. And it was just like I was always, talking to friends about how can we work self-care in. And like one time I would go to a friend's house and watch her kids with my daughters, and then she'd go work out, and then she would come back to her house, and then she'd watch my kids with her kids, and then I would go work out. And so that was kind of a fun way that we did it. But it was just like I was always looking for ways to incorporate self-care in, but I did not do it very well. But like I said, I'm lucky. How about you, Drusilla?
A little bit of the same. Probably not to that extreme. I was the person who was hiring sales reps, so I knew how they worked. Yeah, I was a sales recruiter or headhunter for a really long time, for most of my career, and the latter part, anyways, in HR. And but I do recall the coming home, cooking dinner, getting everybody situated, and going back to the computer because I wanted to get ahead of the curve. I didn't want to wake up to, 50,000 emails when I can get them done the night before, right? Definitely was on that timeline as well. And I would say that I always did, though, from the standpoint of loving the exercise and the being outdoors, and that kind of helping to balance the stress of working in corporate America. So I have to say that I felt pretty balanced for the most part. And I've always been a sleeper. Like I'm gonna usually get my 7 or 8 every night. And even now, when I don't, it's usually because sometimes I just say it's time for me and God to have a night, right? And so sometimes I can't go to sleep. But the next day, let's say I might go to sleep at 3 a.m. and I'll get up at 7:30 or 8, and I won't be tired the next day. And I'll just have a regular sleep the next day. And it never bothers me. My husband thinks that's strange, but yeah, it just doesn't bother me. So I think that just tells me that I'm pretty rested in general, you know, and outside of probably partying and, kind of stuff back in the day, that was probably more it than anything else. I've never been a person who, would work really, really long hours or anything like that, Yeah, I probably could have just meditated a little more and prayed a little more and all the things that you talked about, Morgan, that we do now that comes second nature. Um, yeah, so I would say I was probably about 75% there back then. Yeah.
You're amazing.
Awesome. Now we just need pictures of you both 25 years ago so we can put a face to the stories.
Same. They look the same.
Yeah, exactly.
The other day, I have all these random things that I did too. That I don't ever talk about, and I forget that I actually did it. I used to teach graduate school.
What?
Wow.
What did you teach?
I used to teach. Yes. So crazy. I taught.
I love it.
I taught a graduate course. Well, work-life balance. Okay. So yes, I did. I worked a regular day job. Then I came home. Instead of getting back online after I cooked dinner, I taught a class. And it was organizational development for graduate students. And it was strictly online. And so I would spend a couple hours after dinner teaching that. And it was just me and my son at the time. And so he would be doing homework and I would be teaching.
Wow.
That's kind of what we did after work, after dinner, and it was just a thing. Yeah, that was a few years back. But I can say that I don't know. I don't recall feeling that I was overexerted or anything during that time. I felt like my son and I just had a pretty nice groove at the time.
But was it also something that you really were passionate about and loved? Because I think that makes a difference. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Because it was like, in the graduate classes, of course, it's mostly writing, right? Mm-hmm. And I love writing. And so I would love grading their papers.
Mm.
So, but no, the feedback was so awesome because they would say, oh, I've never gotten this feedback this good from any teacher I've ever had. It was because I was just so into it, right? Okay. Yeah, and that's exactly it, Penny. I really enjoyed it more so even than my day job. So that made a big difference.
Yeah, I think when we enjoy what we're doing, it just feeds us. It doesn't deplete us. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Melissa?
Well, I was thinking while you guys both were talking, so what other self-care did you do during that time? Because Penny, you don't get to be 63 and take no meds and haven't done anything. You obviously have taken care of yourself. Yes. And Drusilla, you don't give that much of yourself and raise your son alone and not have some kind of practices like a bath before night or before bedtime or, talking to one of your sisters and coming down from the day. What was it that you guys did during those times?
Yeah, I was always really active. I mean, I loved going outside, walking, running. I did a lot of running when I was younger. We did a lot of 10K races. Yes, I've always been really active. I don't think that's ever been the problem. It's just like putting way too much on my plate, I think was what the problem was.
Yeah, but even with all of that on your plate, you've made the time for what fueled you and filled your cup, which was the active. A lot of people would bump that.
Yeah, I did a lot of journaling too. I've kept all my journals. I have like a stack, I don't know, up to the ceiling almost. And I don't want to get rid of any of them because I just know there's a book in there. And so I don't want to get rid of any of them. But yeah, a lot of journaling. Yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I think mine was pretty much the same, Penny. The exercising. I loved it. I would do any type of boot camp anybody would challenge me to. So the exercising, I did get a lot of body massages back then, at least once a month. And journaling, writing. I love to write. So yeah. That was great. That was pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I reached for Twizzlers and
I emotionally ate too.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that was self-care, but it was something. It got me through. Some candy and but I think I always had a spiritual, like I always kind of indulged myself spiritually. So it wasn't always work or always kids 24/7. I used to swim a lot, and that just puts me someplace else, and it really feeds my soul. So swimming for me, exercise, and I always do feel better when I eat good food, balanced food, not just a big bowl of one thing, a lot of water. I've always drank a lot of water. Just paid attention to those types of things because I did eat candy when I wanted to and, had some beers and that kind of thing. So I think, again, it's that life work balance you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we have to take in consideration, it doesn't sound like we did a whole lot of self-care back then compared to now. But I do think that computers and phones and all of this zaps more from us now than what we were exposed to back then as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when we spent times with our friends, it was usually face-to-face, right?
Yeah.
And not, through their computers and phones and things like that. So, the stimulation was a lot less taxing back then as well.
Yeah. My biggest challenge now is to get off electronics by 9 p.m. so that I can get a good night's sleep.
It's it's mindless scrolling is self-care, and then also knowing when to get off is self-care.
Right.
That's so funny. Well, I want to add to the conversation because I think not for everyone is it the whole working to exhaustion, the thing where they're neglecting their self-care, because that wasn't really my thing. I had a job since I was 14 years old. I did always have a very strong work ethic, but I always had a sense of work-life balance. And I'm grateful that the company I worked for 17 years really felt strongly about work-life balance as well. So I never was one to put in a 60-hour work week or even a 50-hour work week. That was not really the way that I neglected myself. For me, it was more, and we've had this discussion on the podcast before, but it was more like the people pleasing thing and not knowing how to put up boundaries or to say no. And, allowing friends into my circle just because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, rather, even if I knew they were going to be an energy drain or, not someone who was going to enhance my quality of life. Not saying no to activities for fear of missing out, not because I actually wanted to go, and just running myself ragged in that way. And yeah, so just to say that not for everybody is it a work yourself to the bone thing as the way that we neglect our self-care.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
Morgan.
a really good distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah. I would say some of the other ways that pop up into my mind and didn't impact me until later in my 40s was after I got married and putting myself last after taking care of everyone else is probably what happened after the fun years and just me and my son and doing what I wanted to do after dinner, right? Became what do I have to do to make sure everybody else is prepared for the next day and everything associated with, that. Yeah, I would say that became probably an area that was lacking for me later, which almost immediately did become the time where I was seeking for spiritual guidance and became, a spiritual student. So it's probably not a big coincidence that I felt the difference between that nice little comfortable, balanced world versus the world I stepped into after getting married and raising my stepdaughter. Yeah.
I think it's a pretty typical thing. Women put themselves last.
Yeah, my husband would always say, Penny, sit down and eat. Your food's going to get cold. And I go, it's okay if I eat cold food. It didn't matter to me if it was warm or cold. But I always think about that.
That makes me cringe. I need my hot food to be very hot. And my cold food to be very cold. Like, I don't want anything lukewarm or room temperature.
Oh,
gosh.
What about from here on out? Like, what are we doing from here on out to take care of ourselves, to focus on our self-care, to not put ourselves last?
Well, one of the things that I did first, 3 or 4 years ago, well, not first, but recently, but it was one that had a good impact on me, is I found this compassion course by Tom Bond. That's THOM Bond. And it's all based on nonviolent communications, not nonverbal. Though we do a lot of nonverbal communication, but it's nonviolent communication. And it was called the Compassion Course. It goes for a year long. And it really helped me to understand what I'm feeling and what I need. And that was some of the very first practices that you do in this course, is to really pay attention to what are you feeling, and not just I'm happy, sad, or mad. It's just like really like I'm feeling, I can't even think of a feeling now other than happy, sad, and mad. Exhausted, aggravated,
stressed.
Stressed, all that stuff. There's a whole list. You can go to nonviolentcommunications.com, I think, or .org, and find the whole list of feelings and needs. And it really assisted me to understand what I was feeling and what I needed, because I realized that I really didn't even know what I felt and what I needed, because I had ignored it and I wasn't taught it, when I was growing up. And so it was a gap in my learning that I wanted to go back and fill in. So that's one of the things that I've done, of course. Yeah, I've been a seeker for a long time. And so I've been seeking this type of stuff for a while. But that's one of the things that really resonated with me that I thought I would share with our listeners.
Love that.
Yeah,
how do you start listening? How do you start identifying your feelings? Like, how
you just pause and you just say, especially when you feel like you get triggered or you're agitated or something, you just pause and say, okay, like, what am I feeling? Or when you get into a lot of nonviolent communication is, the violence happens because you get into a conflict with someone, right? And that's so you really learn to figure out what you're feeling. And then you figure out what the other person could be feeling too. You put yourself in their shoes. And so you just have to pause and ask yourself, and you can look at the list. There's nothing wrong with looking at the list and say, okay, does that fit in with me? Or, am I agitated, or am I feeling depleted, or whatever it is? And then then you feel, and then when you had maybe the interaction that didn't go so well, you can say, okay, now I wonder what they were feeling. And you kind of just, it just helps you to start really putting words to those feelings versus just feeling them and not knowing what to do with them. Does that help?
Yes, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Penny, how do you integrate self-care into the job for your employees? What are some things that you all do?
Well, one of the things, because we have a repetitive motion job in our manufacturing floor, we actually require them to pause every 2 hours and do stretches to stretch their bodies, so that, repetitive motion injuries are a real thing. And we don't want anybody to get hurt here at our company ever. And so that's one of the things that we do. Obviously, they, well, we have a break room too. And before the pandemic, we always had it stocked with food so that they didn't ever have to worry about having to run out and get food, because sometimes that can cause stress. Oh my God, I have to run and get food. I didn't bring anything today. We stopped that because it was, what the pandemic did to us all on sharing food and stuff. So we have a real nice break room. I mean, there's a nice comfy couch. They can go sit down on their breaks, and they can, do whatever they want. We also have outdoor seating, so they can go outside and they can enjoy their food. And there's a beautiful walking path across the street they can go on. So, I mean, that's all available to them. If they choose to take it or not, that's up to them. I don't know what else. I mean, we always are looking at programs for people to improve themselves. So personal growth, if they, just whatever they want to learn. We have this training program that we found that's low cost or no cost, and they can take classes because we've signed up for it at our company. And
didn't you do
parties.
Like vision boarding with them before?
Yes, used to do that. Yeah, in January we'd always create a vision board together. It was so much fun. And some of I stopped. We got to be a little too big. I just found out this year that a few of our employees still get together and do vision boards. It's so cool. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah,
That's a lot. That's wonderful as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're trying.
That's a lot.
I was just talking with the leadership team earlier this week, and we recently had an employee resign, a high-level employee resign, and it was all for the best for everybody. And I just got it, God, I feel like sometimes I'm just beating my head against the wall. And a mentor told me, well, no matter what you do, you're still going to be seen as the boss. And not everybody likes to see people that are bosses. They're not going to be honest, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, and it's always, that a lot of times it's just the negative feedback, not the good feedback. And so sometimes it's just God, it gets so hard and heavy. But then that's when I just get to step up my self-care and look at my mental fitness and say, okay, I'm not going to take this personally. The 4 agreements, it's not about me, honestly, because I know what I'm doing. And so when I get into those levels of despair, that's another feeling, right?
Yes.
I can interrupt it by doing meditation, journaling, talking and reasoning it out with somebody else. I mean, simple things, doing some breathing exercises, prayer, all of it. Yeah. How about you? What do you guys do?
Currently, like what are my current self-care practices? I would say one thing for me is to plan out my week, not plan it out, but put my appointments and things that I have to get done for the week down on paper so that I'm aware of them, so that I don't forget things or miss appointments or miss important deadlines, because that brings me so much stress. Like I remember when we first started recording this podcast episode, I had only programmed our meetings out for a month. And so then it fell off my calendar and I didn't have it written down on my paper. And I missed like one of our very early recordings. And I was so stressed out about that. So just not like setting myself up to not have those experiences that cause me stress. I don't live and breathe by my to-do list or by my calendar, but just taking that one little step of like previewing my week is something that helps me. So that's one thing, but also like one of my key practices too is just, I'm pretty good about just doing what I feel like doing in the moment. And I trust that that's spirit guiding me. So like I can have a to-do list of 20 things, and some of it can be for the podcast. Some of it can be for the household chores. Some of it can be like running to the grocery store, those types of things. Some of it can be for building my business or working for my part-time job. I mean, it could span, or some of it could be like go to the beach, call mom and dad. It could be anything, but I check in with when I complete a project or a task, I check in with like, what do I feel like of all of these different things that I could do? What do I feel like doing? And that's 9 times out of 10, that's what I do, because I'm trusting that that's how spirit is guiding me. Like what I feel like doing is what I'm being called to do in that moment. That's what I'm energetically aligned with in that moment. So that's one of my big self-care practices.
Oh. Awesome.
Yes, that resonates with me. That's typically how I manage my days, for the most part as well. So if there's nothing that I have to be doing, which is why I don't like to give people that have projects that they're working on for me. That's why I don't like to give them deadlines, because I don't have one. So how can I give Yeah, because if I give them one, that means I have to have one, right? So I typically don't. And I feel like I'm just as productive, and I feel like they are as well. So
That's awesome.
That's a great like midway point. We could aim, if we're not on one side, like checking off all. I feel sometimes it's all the have to do's before I get to the stuff I want to do or I need to do. So even just halfway there would be progress, right? Just like halfway, clearing my calendar, just halfway. And if someone's not ready to leap all into like just going with how spirit tells you to move that day, you could just go halfway. I think it would be fine.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Were you about to say something, Penny? Oh, you're muted.
You guys can't mute me. I muted myself. No. I was just thinking that any other self-care tips that somebody would like to share with the listeners that they could incorporate into their daily life right now, today? I've got one. So I started meditating twice a day for 20 minutes. And the afternoon one is probably the most important one. I'm shooting for 4 p.m. because that afternoon meditation, it helps me to release any stress that I may have gathered since my morning meditation. So I have incorporated that recently into my daily life. And it is really helping me to relieve any stress that I might have gathered up. So that's one thing that I've been doing lately.
Oh, awesome. Well, you'll have to meditate when we wrap up here today. I have heard that from people who practice transcendental meditation and do like the 20 minutes twice a day. I have heard that the midday afternoon one is like pretty profound. So it's not the first time I've heard that, but
I think I'll start
still have yet
doing
to,
that.
Yeah.
Yes. Afternoon meditations. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Any final thoughts anybody wants to share before we wrap this episode? We're missing our captain, Amanda, today to steer us home.
We have to have Penny's Post-its.
Oh, yeah. I've only got one today. It's so funny. And it's time for me and God to have a day.
I did love that. Yes. I loved that.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us for episode 71 on our self-care. Like, what is it? And we'll figure out what we're going to call it soon. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been our pleasure to be with you. We love and appreciate any and all feedback. You can find us on all the podcast platforms, as well as at our new beautiful website, 5lemonslaughing.com. We want to give a shout out to Melissa, who's like on our team here. And she is making us shine brighter than we even can imagine with all of her work on our website. So thank you, Melissa. And
thank you. Go check out our beautiful new website.
That's 5lemonslaughing.com, 5 F-I-V-E. And we'll see you next week. And again, if you have any ideas that you'd like us to discuss, please send them on over. We love you and appreciate you.
Love you. Bye. Thank you.